Welcome back to part 3 of our series, The 15 Best Oscar Looks of All Time. If you've already watched parts 1 and 2, you already know that we've looked back at some truly unforgettable fashion moments from the Academy Awards. But the Oscars have given us so many incredible looks over the decades that there was simply no way to fit them all into just 2 videos. So we're continuing the countdown with another 15 iconic appearances, from glamorous vintage gowns and daring 1970s fashion to unforgettable Versace moments and red carpet looks that completely changed the way celebrities dressed for awards season. Lauren Hutton, 1975. Let's start this countdown with a look that proves you don't need a giant ball gown or a mountain of diamonds to become part of Oscar fashion history. At the 47th Academy Awards in 1975, 31-year-old Lauren Hutton arrived with record producer Lou Adler wearing a flowing pastel rainbow Halston gown that looked effortlessly cool in the most perfect 1970s way. The dress featured a plunging neckline and soft pleating that allowed the chiffon to move beautifully around her, while the dreamy sherbet-like colors gave the whole look an almost watercolor effect. But then Lauren threw a huge red fox fur coat over it, and somehow, that unexpected combination made the outfit even more fabulous. The rich auburn fur against all those delicate pastel shades shouldn't necessarily have worked, yet it created exactly the kind of effortless contrast that made Hutton's style so memorable. She kept everything else wonderfully simple, allowing the dress and that enormous fur topper to speak for themselves. And that's really the magic of this appearance. Lauren didn't look overly styled or as though every detail had been carefully calculated for the cameras. She looked like a woman who simply knew what she liked and wore it with complete confidence. Decades later, fashion editors still return to this exact Oscar moment when discussing the best red carpet looks of all time, and it's easy to understand why. The pastel Halston gown was soft and romantic, the fur was bold and unexpected, and Lauren Hutton made the whole thing look completely natural. Cher, 1973. And then came Cher, proving that Oscar fashion didn't always have to be traditional. At the 45th Academy Awards in 1973, Cher arrived on the red carpet alongside Sonny Bono in one of the most instantly recognizable looks of the decade, a dazzling gold two-piece designed by Bob Mackie. The embroidered ensemble consisted of a jewel-covered top that left her midriff completely exposed and a matching floor-length skirt, creating a silhouette that was incredibly daring for the time. Remember, this was 1973, when showing that much skin on an Oscars red carpet was hardly considered conventional, yet Cher wore the look with absolute confidence. The intricate gold embroidery caught the light beautifully, while the simplicity of the skirt allowed the spectacular detailing on the top to remain the star. She added oversized gold hoop earrings, and those unforgettable long nails painted a shocking shade of pink, giving the glamorous gold palette a playful pop of color. And that combination became part of what made the look so unmistakably Cher. It was glamorous, sexy, unconventional, and completely fearless all at once. Bob Mackie's designs would go on to become inseparable from her fashion identity, but this was one of the moments that truly showed the world what the two of them could create together. Farrah Fawcett, 1978. If anyone ever managed to dress like a Hollywood fantasy, it was Farrah Fawcett at the 1978 Oscars. On April 3, 1978, Farrah stepped onto the Academy Awards stage to present an award wearing a spectacular liquid gold Stephen Burrows dress that seemed to shimmer with every movement. The slinky, floor-length design clung beautifully to her figure, while the metallic mesh gave the entire gown the appearance of molten gold. The neckline dipped dramatically, and the extremely open construction made the dress feel incredibly daring for an awards ceremony of that era. But somehow, Farrah never looked overwhelmed by it. She simply wore it with that effortless confidence that made her one of the biggest style icons of the 1970s. And then, of course, there was the hair. Her famous feathered blonde cut was already one of the most recognizable hairstyles in the world. And with all that volume framing her face, it created the perfect contrast to the sleek, shimmering dress. The result was pure late 70s glamour, part Hollywood starlet, part disco goddess, and completely unforgettable. What makes the moment even better is that Farrah wasn't just posing for photographs. She actually walked onto the Oscars stage in this extraordinary dress to present an award. Standing underneath the bright ceremony lights, with the gold gown catching every flash, she looked almost like one of the Oscar statuettes herself. Raquel Welch, 1979. By the time Raquel Welch arrived at the 1979 Oscars, the red carpet had officially entered its disco era. Raquel stepped out in a jaw-dropping sapphire blue sequin catsuit by Azzaro, and honestly, calling it a jumpsuit almost doesn't do it justice. The skin-tight one-piece completely followed her famous hourglass silhouette, while its plunging neckline and delicate straps made the look incredibly daring for an Academy Awards ceremony. Every inch of the fabric was covered in shimmering blue sequins, so whenever the lights hit her, the entire outfit seemed to sparkle like liquid sapphire. And then there was the necklace. Raquel wore a wide, layered gold choker around her neck, creating a gorgeous contrast against all that electric blue and giving the outfit an unmistakable late 70s glamour. Rather than softening the drama of the catsuit, she leaned right into it, with her signature voluminous, feathered brunette hair completing the bombshell effect. This was not a traditional Oscars gown, and that was exactly the point. Raquel looked as though she had stepped straight out of a glamorous disco nightclub and onto Hollywood's biggest stage, and somehow it worked. The look was sexy, sparkling, and incredibly confident, while still feeling completely of its time. Decades later, fashion retrospectives continue to single out this Azzaro catsuit as one of the most memorable Oscar looks of the 1970s. Jane Fonda, 1979. Sometimes a dress becomes iconic because the woman wearing it loves it, and sometimes, surprisingly, it's almost the opposite. At the 51st Academy Awards in 1979, Jane Fonda walked onto the stage to accept the Best Actress Oscar for Coming Home, wearing a beautiful lilac sequin gown designed by James Riva. The floor-length dress featured a soft lavender base covered in an intricate paisley and floral-inspired pattern, while the long sleeves opened dramatically into wide, flowing bell shapes that gave the gown a very distinctive late 70s silhouette. Under the Academy Awards lights, the sequins shimmered beautifully, making the entire dress glow as Jane accepted one of the biggest honors of her career. But here's the fascinating part. Jane later admitted that she actually didn't like the dress. She had worn it as a favor connected to her then-husband Tom Hayden and his relationship with the designer James Riva. And yet, despite Jane's personal feelings about the gown, the moment itself became part of Oscars fashion history. She wasn't simply wearing a pretty dress that night. She was accepting her first Academy Award for Best Actress, making the outfit permanently connected to one of the most important moments of her career. Looking back at it today, the lilac color, shimmering sequins, and dramatic bell sleeves feel wonderfully vintage, and they capture the glamour of the late 1970s perfectly. It's a great reminder that sometimes fashion history isn't about whether a celebrity's favorite dress was their favorite. It is about the moment the world remembers. Cindy Crawford, 1991. Now this is the kind of dress that can change the entire mood of an awards show. At the 63rd Academy Awards in 1991, Cindy Crawford arrived on the arm of her then-boyfriend Richard Gere, wearing a breathtaking scarlet red Versace gown designed by Gianni Versace. And this wasn't just another glamorous celebrity dress. It was actually the first Versace gown ever worn on an Oscars red carpet. The story behind it is almost as good as the dress itself. Cindy had recently walked in Versace's fall 1991 show, where she had seen a similar design, and when she found out she was going to the Oscars, she simply asked Gianni if he could make one for her in red. He said yes, and fashion history was made. The finished gown was sleek and incredibly daring, with a plunging neckline framed by abstract crisscross detailing, a dramatically exposed back, and an extremely high slit that made the already body-hugging silhouette even more striking. The vivid scarlet color was impossible to miss, especially against Cindy's glowing skin and signature supermodel waves. She kept the rest of the styling relatively understated, allowing the dress to do what it was designed to do, make an entrance. And it certainly did. Cindy later joked about how careful she had to be in the gown because of that very high slit, which makes the whole story feel even more human. What makes this moment particularly special is that Cindy wasn't working with a modern celebrity stylist and carefully engineered red carpet strategy. She saw something she loved, called the designer, and asked him to make it happen. More than 3 decades later, the dress is still considered one of the most iconic Oscar looks ever created. Winona Ryder, 1994. If you think of Winona Ryder in the 1990s, you might immediately picture dark colors, little black dresses, and that effortlessly cool alternative style. But at the 1994 Oscars, she gave us something completely different. At just 22 years old, Winona arrived at the 66th Academy Awards wearing a beautiful vintage champagne-colored gown sourced from the Los Angeles boutique Lily at Sea. The Edward Sebesta design had a delicate 1920s-inspired silhouette, with fine straps and intricate beadwork covering the light-toned fabric. As she moved, the layers of beaded fringe created this beautiful shimmering effect, giving the dress a wonderfully old Hollywood feel without looking overly formal. And what makes the choice even more special is that Winona wasn't simply wearing an expensive new designer gown, she had deliberately gone vintage. The soft champagne color and delicate embellishment gave her a completely different appearance from the edgier style people often associated with her at the time. Her short, dark hair framed the look beautifully, keeping the overall appearance youthful and modern rather than making her look like she was wearing a costume from another era. Courtney Love, 1997. Now this was a transformation nobody saw coming. At the 69th Academy Awards in 1997, Courtney Love arrived in a breathtaking white atelier Versace gown that looked almost completely disconnected from the grunge image she had become famous for. The silk satin design followed the body in a beautiful bias-cut silhouette, with a plunging neckline and delicate straps creating an elegant, almost old Hollywood effect. The gown was incredibly simple in color, but its fluid construction made it feel anything but basic, and the dramatic open back added just enough edge to remind us that this was still Courtney Love. She paired the pristine white dress with a spectacular platinum and diamond lariat necklace by Martin Katz, which fell beautifully down the bare neckline, while ash-colored satin Manolo Blahnik shoes completed the look. And the whole transformation was even more interesting because Courtney's Oscars styling was reportedly still up in the air until the very last minute. There had been plenty of uncertainty over whether she would wear Valentino or Versace, but on Oscar day, the white Versace gown won. And what a choice it was. Suddenly, the woman known for smeared lipstick, baby doll dresses, and deliberately messy grunge style was standing on Hollywood's biggest red carpet, looking incredibly polished and glamorous. Even contemporary fashion coverage described the appearance as a major transformation, and decades later, the contrast is still what makes this look so memorable. Cher, 1998. 25 years after her unforgettable gold Bob Mackie look, Cher returned to the Oscars in another creation by the designer who understood her style better than almost anyone. At the 70th Academy Awards in 1998, Cher arrived with her son Elijah Blue Allman wearing a breathtaking champagne-colored Bob Mackie gown covered in shimmering beadwork. And while her famous 1973 Oscars outfit was all about showing skin, this look created its drama through transparency, texture, and incredible detail. The long-sleeve gown was made from a nude-toned sheer fabric decorated with vertical lines of sparkling beads and sequins, creating a beautiful shimmering effect whenever the cameras caught the light. The skirt flowed into a soft, flared hem, giving the otherwise fitted silhouette a little movement. But then came the accessory that made the whole look unmistakably Cher, a matching crystal-encrusted headpiece that sat over her long, straight black hair like a sparkling cap. Around her neck, she added an oversized statement choker, giving the delicate champagne gown an extra dose of glamour. What I love about this appearance is how different it feels from the Cher we saw at the Oscars in the 1970s. She was still dramatic, still glamorous, and still completely committed to Bob Mackie's vision. But the mood had changed. Instead of shock value, this was about elaborate craftsmanship and old Hollywood fantasy, with a distinctly Cher twist. She was also taking part in the Academy's 70th anniversary celebration, making the appearance feel almost like a fashion homecoming. Sharon Stone, 1998. And sometimes the most unforgettable Oscars look starts with something you could probably find in your own wardrobe. At the 70th Academy Awards in 1998, Sharon Stone walked onto the red carpet wearing something that seemed almost shockingly simple for Hollywood's biggest night: a white Gap button-down shirt. But this wasn't a casual outfit. Sharon paired the everyday shirt with a stunning floor-length Vera Wang skirt in a soft lavender purple shade, creating one of the most unexpected high-low combinations the Oscars had ever seen. She wore the shirt casually, with the sleeves rolled up and the front left open at the neckline, while the elegant satin skirt instantly transformed the whole look into evening wear. And the story behind the shirt made it even more memorable. Sharon later revealed that she had borrowed it from her then-husband Phil Bronstein, proving that you don't necessarily need a designer label from head to toe to make a major fashion statement. The contrast was the genius of the outfit. The simple white shirt against the luxurious, flowing skirt made both pieces stand out even more. Her short blonde hair and understated beauty styling kept everything looking effortless rather than overly polished. And that was exactly why the look worked. Sharon wasn't trying to compete with the enormous ball gowns and elaborate couture dresses surrounding her. She was doing something much simpler and, in its own way, much more daring. Lucy Liu, 2000. Lucy Liu brought a completely different kind of glamour to the 2000 Oscars. At the 72nd Academy Awards, she arrived in a striking red Versace gown from the Fall/Winter 2000 collection, a look that had originally appeared on the runway on supermodel Amber Valletta. The gown featured an asymmetrical one-shoulder neckline with dramatic diagonal draping, while different shades of red, intricate beadwork, and sheer sections created a beautiful, almost metallic effect under the flashbulbs. It looked sleek and incredibly sophisticated from a distance, but there was one detail you probably wouldn't guess just by looking at photographs. The dress was extremely heavy. Lucy later recalled just how much weight all that elaborate glass beadwork added to the gown, even leaving an indentation on her shoulder by the end of the evening. So while she made the dress look effortless on the red carpet, there was definitely some serious work happening underneath all that glamour. She kept the rest of her styling sleek and simple, wearing her dark hair straight and allowing the bold red gown to remain the main attraction. And that was exactly the right choice. There was no need for a huge necklace or complicated hairstyle when the dress itself was doing so much. What makes this look particularly special is how modern it still feels. The asymmetrical neckline, tonal red pattern, and sheer details could easily appear on a red carpet today. Yet it has that unmistakable Y2K sophistication that instantly takes us back to 2000. Angelina Jolie, 2000. Angelina Jolie didn't look like she was attending the Oscars in 2000. She looked like she had walked straight out of a gothic movie and onto Hollywood's biggest stage. At the 72nd Academy Awards, Angelina arrived in a sleek black Marc Bouwer gown featuring long sleeves, a high neckline, and a simple, figure-hugging column silhouette that fell all the way to the floor. At a ceremony where so many stars were covered in sparkle and elaborate embellishment, Angelina went in the completely opposite direction. There was no giant ball gown, no explosion of sequins, and no complicated accessories, just black, from head to toe. And then there was that hair. Her long, jet black-looking hair was worn completely straight, falling dramatically past her shoulders and creating an almost gothic contrast against her pale complexion. It wasn't surprising that people immediately started comparing the whole appearance to characters like Morticia Addams and Vampira, but honestly, that was exactly what made it work. Angelina wasn't trying to fit into the traditional idea of Oscars glamour, she was creating her own version of it. And the timing made the look even more memorable because this was the night she won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for Girl Interrupted. So while she was accepting one of the biggest honors of her career, she was doing it dressed in one of the simplest and darkest looks on the entire red carpet. There was something incredibly confident about that choice. Instead of letting the dress compete with the moment, she let her presence do all the work. Michelle Yeoh, 2001. And this next look wasn't just about looking beautiful, it was about telling a story. At the 73rd Academy Awards in 2001, Michelle Yeoh arrived in a spectacular custom gown by Hong Kong designer Barney Cheng, created as a tribute to Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. The film had become one of the biggest international successes of the year, and Michelle wanted her Oscars look to reflect where she came from. The result was an extraordinary Cheongsam-inspired gown with a high mandarin collar, a sleek, figure-hugging silhouette, and dramatic black and gold tiger striping that seemed to echo the spirit of the movie itself. But the real magic was in the craftsmanship. The entire gown was covered with hand-sewn Swarovski crystals, around 187,000 of them, creating an incredible shimmering surface that caught the light every time Michelle moved. And yes, there was a price to pay for all that sparkle. Michelle later recalled just how heavy the gown was when she first put it on. Yet once she stepped onto the Oscars red carpet, she said it felt almost like she was walking on air. That's such a perfect description of this moment because the dress looked completely effortless on her, even though an enormous amount of work and craftsmanship had gone into creating it. She completed the look with elegant Bulgari diamond earrings, keeping the styling refined enough to let the extraordinary gown remain the star. And the timing couldn't have been more perfect. Reese Witherspoon, 2006. And topping our list is a look that didn't just win Reese Witherspoon an Oscar, it helped change the way Hollywood thought about vintage fashion. At the 78th Academy Awards in 2006, Reese arrived wearing a breathtaking Christian Dior couture gown dating back to 1955, making it more than half a century old when she stepped onto the red carpet. The shimmering champagne silver dress featured delicate tulle, intricate embroidery, and rows of sparkling embellishment that caught the light beautifully, while its elegant silhouette felt completely timeless. But the best part of the story happened before Reese even reached the Oscars. She found the gown at the famous Paris vintage boutique of Didier Ludo, and the dress was so special that Ludo initially didn't want to sell it. Reese and her team eventually managed to acquire it, and because the gown had spent decades in storage, it was carefully refurbished before the big night. Then came the moment that made everything even more perfect. Reese won the Academy Award for Best Actress for her unforgettable performance as June Carter Cash in Walk the Line. So there she was, holding Hollywood's biggest acting prize, while wearing a piece of fashion history that had been created more than 50 years earlier. The dress was romantic without being overly sweet, glamorous without feeling excessive, and, most importantly, completely different from the typical new season red carpet gown. Today, vintage and archival fashion are everywhere on major red carpets, but Reese's 2006 Dior moment remains one of the appearances that helped make that idea feel truly exciting. And that's why this beautiful 1955 gown deserves the top spot. It wasn't just an Oscars dress. And that brings us to the end of part 3 of the 15 best Oscar looks of all time. From Lauren Hutton's effortless 1970s glamour and Cher's fearless Bob Mackie creations, to Farrah Fawcett's liquid gold moment, Cindy Crawford's legendary Versace, Angelina Jolie's gothic elegance, Michelle Yeoh's breathtaking cultural tribute, and Reese Witherspoon's beautiful vintage Dior, every single look had its own story. But the Oscars have given us decades of unforgettable fashion, so there are still plenty of iconic looks we haven't talked about yet. And that's exactly why this series doesn't end here. So, which look from part 3 was your favorite? And is there an Oscars look you think absolutely deserves a spot in the next part? Let me know in the comments.